Hello there. This tyre inflator is powered by a battery, so you can use it anytime, anywhere, without having to plug it into a power source. Specifically, this is the Ring RTC4000. In this video, I'll show you what's in the box, how the inflator works, and crucially, whether it's any good. Welcome to CarSpyTV. Right, inside the box we have the inflator itself, a case, two cables that you only need once the battery goes flat, instructions, and crucially one of these little drying pouches that says do not eat, throw away. Alright then, good shot. So let's have a look at the inflator. At the front here we have a colour display and a series of buttons. I'll explain how those work in a moment. On the back, in contrast, we have 4 rubber feet that minimise vibration when the inflator is turned on, and we also have this air hose which is stored rather neatly. Now, to use the inflator, we first have to remove this air hose, and that's easy enough. We just peel it out of position, something like that. Now, this air hose is about 65 centimetres long, and this brass coloured end here has to be screwed into a hole in the top of the inflator. Alright, so let's have a go at that. There is the hole at the top of the inflator, and the hose simply screws in nice and easily, something like that. Now, while we're looking at the top of the inflator, there are 2 more things worth mentioning. Number 1, this area here is a torch, and that comes in handy if you're working at night. And number 2, if you press this button here, you can let air out of the tyre, which of course is handy if it's overinflated. There are some other useful features on the base of the inflator. For example, if we open this trap door like so, we see 3 adapters, 1, 2, 3, each of which can be removed just like that. Now, you could use this silver adapter to pump up a football, the black one to pump up toys for the beach such as inflatable rings, and the brass coloured one is for presto valves that you often find on modern bicycles. Whichever adapter you need, all you have to do is screw it into the end of the air hose, something like that. Let's now have a second look at the base of the inflator, because there's a second trap door, and when we peer behind there, we see these 2 ports, and this is how we can recharge the inflator when the battery goes flat. This is a USB port, and this is a 12-volt DC port that connects to the cigarette lighter in a car. Pleasingly, the inflator also comes with both types of charge cable. So here we are charging via USB and a standard home plug socket. Alternatively, here we are recharging via the 12-volt DC cable, which is connected to the cigarette lighter in my car. Now, this cable is 3 meters long, which is more than enough to stretch from the cigarette lighter to any tyre on a typical car. This means that if the inflator's battery is completely flat, you can still power it via the DC cable and the car's cigarette lighter and reinflate your tyre. That's a really useful and reassuring feature, and I've seen countless inflators that don't give you that option. So, let's now connect the inflator to this tyre and I'll show you some other useful features. Right, to turn the inflator on, simply press and hold down this central button until the screen comes to life, which it now has. And as we can see, we immediately get a tyre pressure reading, which in this case is 24 psi, and we can tell it's psi because it says so there. However, if you'd rather take a reading in bar or kPa, you can do that. And to change to that setting, simply press and hold down this button here. And that moves us to bar. Do that again to move to kPa, and of course, as we'd expect, do it again to move back to psi, which is where we'll leave it. Now let's say, for example, that we want to increase the pressure in the tyre to 27 psi. But how? Well, one of the options is to use the plus button here, so we'll press that until we get up to 27 psi. But look, if we accidentally go past that, as we have here, we can press the minus button to move back, all right, and then leave it until it stops flashing, which it has now, and press the on button to start the inflation. And off it goes. And it will carry on like that until we get to 27 psi, at which point the inflator will automatically turn off. See? Nice and simple. Do you remember that deflation button I showed you earlier, the one at the top of the inflator? Well, we can now see that in action. So if we press it, we'll hear air escaping from the tyre. Hear that? And of course we have the torch here as well. And to turn on the torch, we simply press the left button here. And the torch springs to life. There it is. It's not particularly bright, but it is nonetheless bright enough to be useful. This tyre inflator also has a memory function that lets you store up to 4 pressures within it. Clearly, that's useful if you're consistently pumping up the same 4 things. So, how do we access the memory feature? Well, as of now, the display is showing the tyre's current pressure, but if we briefly press that button on the right, M1 will appear in the top left-hand corner, which of course stands for Memory 1. And we'll see that preset instead on the screen. So briefly press that button, M1 appears and the preset is 20 psi. So if we press that button again, we move to memory 2, again we move to memory 3, and again we move to memory 4. Now if you want to adjust one of those presets, you can do so via the plus and minus buttons. We'll set this one to 70 psi, and when we get there, just let go. Wait for the screen to stop flashing, which it has now, and 70 psi has now been entered into memory 4. All right, so once you selected the memory you want, let's say in this case memory 3, simply press the start button there, and off it goes. As for the inflator's case, well, it has some surprisingly nice features. For example, we can charge the inflator without removing it from the case because there's a flap on the bottom that opens up to give us access to the charge ports. There they are. And of course we can monitor progress through this little transparent window there that shows us the display on the inflator. And if we look at the back, there's a net area here where we can store the charging cables. Good stuff. I'm not so thrilled with the instructions though. They are, as we can see, mostly pictorial. And whereas some things are clear enough, there are certain elements that I didn't personally find particularly intuitive. Never mind. So, how do we summarise the Ring RTC4000 Cordless Digital Tyre Inflator? Well, I think it's a very good machine, mostly because it's cordless. Being able to move freely from tyre to tyre and from vehicle to vehicle without being restricted by a power cable is tremendously convenient and speeds up the process. The inflator is also easy to use. It pumps up tyres quickly and it comes with useful accessories such as the case, the adapters and the charge cables. What I can't testify to is longevity because I've only had this a few weeks, but it does feel solid and well made. And I've had several other products from this manufacturer in the past, most of which have lasted a good long time. So yes, I'm glad I bought it. Anyway, that's it. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe to CarSpyTV, that makes it easier to find my other content. Can you also please do me a favour and click like on this video, and I'll see you next time with properly inflated tyres. Bye bye.